AM 710 WETG and 100.5 W263PE Rose Hill. This is the Community and Small Business Update with Lee Woodard on Surge Radio.
Good morning, Duplin County. Welcome. It is almost the end of April. Hard to believe we're in the next to the last Saturday. I don't know about y'all, but the year seems to be going too fast for me. You are listening to the Community and Small Biz Update for Duplin County. I am Lee Woodard, your host. We got a great show for you today. I want to mention that the show is sponsored by James Sprunt Community College, your bridge to success, and we're just wrapping up another semester at James Sprunt. Graduation will be coming up in, 2 weeks. But we are pre-registering, so if you are interested in summer school classes, we are offering them. And for the fall, it's not too late. In fact, it's time to start registering. And if you've got any questions, just call or email anyone at James Sprunt, and we'll get you to the right place. And the show is also brought to you by the Small Business Center at James Sprunt. We've had a great year. We've wrapped up all of our workshops until sometime midsummer, but we are still putting our calendar together. If you've got workshops or seminars that you're interested in us providing, give us a call. All right, folks, we are today, my guest is Stan Shockley. I posted on Facebook when I promoted the show that we were going to talk about it. Of course, I put that in capital letters, capital I, capital T. All of us nerds would know we're going to talk about all things computers, but, we'll probably find something else to talk about. So it seemed to be a good thing to do. Stan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Did you just call me a nerd?
Well, absolutely. You don't get your degree in computer science unless you are a nerd.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. How you doing?
But we all come, nerd's a good thing now. I was a nerd in 1978, and it wasn't necessarily a good thing.
Right.
I think the appeal for a nerd increases as they get older. But anyway, and Bill over here is a nerd as well, so he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Stan, as you and I got a chance to talk a little bit. Stan's the associate vice president for MIS, which is an older acronym, but it stands for Management of Information Services at James Sprunt. So, Stan, I mentioned to you about half the folks who have been on the show are native to Duplin County, about half aren't. And you're not native to Duplin, but you're not too far away, right? Where'd you grow up?
Right. I grew up in Onslow County in Jacksonville. Family is a transplant due to my father joining the military. Both of them, my mother and my father, grew up in South Jersey.
Oh, okay.
So we spent a lot of time in different places, obviously, but we spent most of our time in Jacksonville. And he ended up retiring there, and that's where we are.
I was going to ask if he was still in the service, but he's retired.
He's out. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, thank him for us for his service.
Absolutely.
I believe I asked you. You didn't serve.
I didn't.
No. Did he put any pressure on you to serve?
No, actually, it was always pressure to just go to school and not serve. So,
okay.
Yeah, it was just the opposite.
Yeah, my mom was a school teacher, and she did the same thing. She said, "Go be anything you want, just don't be a teacher." So, which I ended up being for a short period of time, but you grew up in Jacksonville. You went to Jacksonville High, right?
I did. Yes,
yeah,
go Cardinals.
Go Cardinals. All right. And from there, after you graduated, where'd you head to?
Went to college right after high school at North Carolina Central in Durham. Majored in computer science.
Okay.
Graduated from there in 2003.
Go Nerds. No.
There you go. Graduated from there and went on to Winston-Salem State to start business school for an MBA as well. Didn't finish that, but looking forward to doing that in the future. So
yeah, I think I mentioned to you. I have started. I got my master's in. I got my MBA in '95, and shortly thereafter decided I wanted to go ahead and get my PhD and started a program. Well, I'm still there. Taking most of the classes I'm going to run out of time, but that's something that's still on my bucket list to go and do. I'm a big believer in lifelong learning, and I got to believe you are too, because you couldn't be in IT if you weren't.
Exactly. You get left behind really fast if you're not.
Yeah, the rate of change is faster in it than I guess anything else. Is it Moore's Law, Bill, that says that I forget. Anyway, how pertinent a technology is declines exponentially, not incrementally. The next greatest thing will be out in 3 months and make whatever you got obsolete.
Yeah.
So Well, let's talk a little bit about what it means to be in charge of IT at a state-supported institution. We're going to bring this home, hopefully, to some things that we'll talk about technology in a small business because it presents a lot of challenges.
Sure.
But what would a day in the life of MIS at a James Sprunt entail?
Well, it's very interesting. Each day brings along a brand new challenge, but for the most part, it's addressing a lot of security issues, things that may present themselves as something that's a vulnerability that needs to be patched up. Also adding technology, the different upgrades to software and things that go on the college on a year-to-year basis based on the curriculum of the students and things like that. So it's pretty much just keeping up with the network, trying to figure out which ways we can take steps forward in technologies that we're currently offering, and security. Those are the biggest things.
You mentioned security, and it's such a huge issue. Most of us don't realize how vulnerable we are. If you listen to the news, certainly with surveillance that our government would have or other governments, but it's not really, I guess that becomes a matter of opinion as to how you feel about that. But how others just have ready access to all of our information. I gave a couple of flash drives to Bill today. Flash drives present a bit of an issue for you, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. Anyone can bring a flash drive. Actually, one of the tools that I use as a network administrator was a bootable operating system on a flash drive, and that's one of the tools that someone who is wearing a black hat can use and infiltrate a system and get all the data. So
yeah, just so what people are talking about, he's bringing in a drive that can hijack your computer. As soon as he sticks it in, he'll run his operating system, but then the files are still on that computer, and you can break right in. Well, you can typically break into them. And, we download and pass stuff along, whether it be through the cloud or whether it be through a USB. And I'm sure one answer to security is shut it all down, right?
Exactly.
But then us as users start becoming a bit whiny, right?
Right. It's like you have to either compromise security or for convenience, or vice versa, convenience for security. So you don't want to rule with an iron fist, but at the same time, you don't want to open yourself up to losing everything. So.
Right. And it may sound like it's just a trivial decision, but it's not. I know that with my clients, a typical session with a new client at the Small Business Center, they'll come in, they've got an idea for a business. We'll talk a little bit about what that might be. But then I'm going to hop on the internet right there in the conference room, and I'm going to take them to the Secretary of State's webpage so I can show them how they can file for an LLC. Then I'm going to take them to the IRS and show them how they get their employee identification number for their business. Then I'm going to take them to GoDaddy to show them how they can buy a domain name and what all that means. And then I'm going to take them to several different web service providers, whether it be Etsy or Shopify, depending on what they're doing. And so in the course of 1 hour, I will hop and gone across, 5 different internet websites. Then I'm going to throw in a flash drive, and I'm going to pull up several templates for them that I'm going to email to them. And I'm going to send them to some other listservs or other places they can get additional information. I think that's all necessary to support. If I didn't do that, it would take several hours as opposed to 1 hour. But what I have done is really put our James Sprunt system at risk.
Absolutely. Any of those conveniences, those things that you're speaking of, they open up a door. They open up a port for somebody to gain access to the system. So in essence, yes.
You're right.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. Trust me, I'm doing more of it now. But then I'll send them to YouTube because there's so many great videos on there. And my point being, the classrooms are moving in that direction too. We're integrating all sorts of media into our, and then we even have, of course, we use Moodle, but we have video classes and online classes where, again, we're all using these tools.
Absolutely.
And so it's a big challenge. How much of your time, out of total resources you have in MIS, how much of that time is spent helping us, the users?
A great deal. At James Sprunt, we do have a community of power users that we call them, people who are a little bit more adept at using the technologies. But for the most part, we tend to try to go around and help people out, especially with the new technologies and the new things that we bring on. So a lot of it is end user assistance.
Yeah, and we won't today, because it's not even pertinent. We won't talk. There's some state legacy systems, whether it be for finance and accounting or whether it be for student information, that is very specific to any school in North Carolina. You've got to support all of those.
Absolutely.
And they're database type systems. And I'm sure users have issues with those. But in addition to any of those state systems that are out there, you've got the ordinary platform, whether it be Microsoft Office or, and how much of the, I would assume that those present as many user questions and issues. And how do I get to this printer? Or
right, exactly. And we are a Microsoft network. We're a Microsoft campus. So a lot of the things that we use, we're using Microsoft. But you mentioned a legacy system. We just actually made a transition from GroupWise, which was from Novell to Office 365. So a lot of that is education and the learning curve and teaching people how to create distribution lists or whatever the case may be. And not only teaching them, but teaching myself as well, because I had no idea before. So
just out of curiosity, since we've gone to Microsoft Office, which by the way I love, I can get on my email anywhere I have an internet connection, and so it's wonderful. Which wasn't necessarily the case in Novell. You know, but how many people lose their files now because there's so many places they can put them?
That's a good point. Either you're logged into the wrong profile, or you saved it on the cloud and didn't save it locally. So it's definitely a challenge. But
trying to get people, and you know, I think I mentioned to you, I'm a big cloud user. I use it as a means of backup, and I use it as a means of having stuff there. And I usually have everything's in two places. And I used to be a local creature, which is not what you want. You would actually prefer it to be somewhere else. And I'm getting away from storing anything locally.
Absolutely.
And are we moving in that direction, I guess?
Oh, yeah. We pretty much don't have a choice. Any solution that you're going to be moving towards in the future is going to be pretty much cloud-based, software as a service. They even have instances where you can have desktops as a service, so you don't even necessarily have to have a local operating system. So
yeah, and you know, that's actually coming up. That presents some real opportunities, I think, doesn't it, for saving and money. A lot of times colleges especially have very unique software. If you're in a science curriculum, you have specific software you might use. If you're in engineering or math, you may have particular software. In our case, I'll be pointing folks in the Small Business Center to QuickBooks, and so next thing you know, you've got 30 different instructors asking for 60 different software packages, all to run on their machine and these other machines. And if you weren't careful, you would spend all your time just installing and uninstalling, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. That's definitely something that we're looking at moving towards, going to a more virtualized environment. NC State is offering something that they call a VCE, which is a virtual computing environment, which is going to allow us to be able to access their systems in order to address that problem that you just mentioned. So.
Yeah, and I actually went to some training at NC State on the VCE, and it's really impressive. Here's this whole list of software, and whatever you have been given permission or access to, it's right there wherever you are.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter what computer you use, and it doesn't, you know, everything's happening from within there. You obviously can save your stuff locally to wherever you are, but now you pay for a fraction of the number of licenses, and then when if you got 10 licenses, when 10 people are on, someone is told you can't get on right now, but you can make a reservation, and it'll email you or text you when you're up and ready to go. But it seems like that would cut the cost of IT licensing down by half or more.
Definitely. It helps us out a lot. And in IT, we do get precedence as far as being able to use budget, but when you're able to create some available funds, when you're in an environment that's ever changing like that, that's a big help.
Well, now my understanding is that the MIS department at James Sprunt is the only one that gets 100% of all the budget requests that they ask. Isn't that correct?
No comment. I plead the fifth on that one.
I don't think anybody ever gets all that they want.
Exactly.
It never happens. But and people would be surprised at just how much money has to be spent just to have the rights and the privileges.
Absolutely.
It gets to be expensive, and managing all that is difficult. Well, we kind of jumped in on security because, as you can tell, I really do. I do think about these things, and I am I sit right on the fence as far as. I certainly understand and get the security, and there is a point to where even I would say I'll give up lots of rights for security. I don't want something to happen to me or my family. There is a line here, and I think everyone's line is a little different whatever you may think. But convenience is, other than watching cat videos, my smartphone is impressive. I mean, I mentioned to you, I have an iPhone 6, and I've had it for a year or so, maybe something like that. And I have Siri turned on, and I have its artificial intelligence turned on. Starting about 3 or 4 months ago, I noticed when I got to my car to leave school, it would flip up and tell me how far it was from my house, what the traffic condition and the weather was. And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't do anything. And then when I would leave in the middle of the day to go to see a client somewhere it would tell me where I was going. It would tell me what the traffic is. And so all of a sudden, my phone now is telling me in anticipation of where it thinks I'm headed,
Wow,
what's fixing to happen. And it was nothing I ever asked for.
Mm-hmm.
And Lydia, my wife's opinion is that's creepy. My opinion is that's really cool.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I can't fathom how many security issues that presents, because it means my calendar is open. It means my home address is open. There's a lot of information, and one of the least secure things we have is our phone.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's kind of a catch-22. You want to hurry up and be a grown-up, but at the same time, when you're a grown-up, you have to pay bills. So,
Right.
But like I mentioned earlier, you sacrifice that security for that convenience. And my thinking is more closer to the creepy side than it is the convenience. But at the same time, it is very useful. It allows us to bring a little bit more efficiency into our everyday life. So
Right.
it's something that's good as well.
Yeah, and when I mentioned that they're in a more vulnerable device, when we want to hop on and use the communications associated with phone, forgetting the fact that I can do stuff through Wi-Fi or whatever, the fact that it's a phone is where so much of the vulnerability is.
Right.
Because when it hits the network, it's going across something that's actually, unless it's 4G, I guess, is protected, but 3G and below, I can spend $1,000 and have a device and pick up everything that's going on for all of you,
Exactly.
in any room at any point, and I'll pick it up once it's made that leap from the phone into the phone system. And that's where if you really want to think about creepy, go read about this.
Right.
You don't have to be in Russia and be a hacker to actually buy technology and to do that.
That's right.
My position has always been that my life is so boring that if anyone wants to steal what I've got, go right ahead. If this gives you an extra 10 minutes of fun for the day,
Right.
But that's not true. There's a lot of other stuff. I have done things like I have purposely never gone online to bank on my phone. I will go to a PC that's locked in, and that gives me some feeling of security, but at the end of the day, it's
not. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So wireless gave us all these wonderful opportunities. Well, let's go back for a second and talk. This obviously, you started at James Sprunt in 2014,
Yes.
so you've been there for a few years. What'd you do prior to that after graduating?
Just before, I was at Marine Federal Credit Union in Jacksonville, and I was a network technician there. Prior to that, it was a long period of trying to find myself, pursuing a lot of different things and trying to figure things out. But I came upon that opportunity, and then once I was there, I got more acclimated to the IT environment, and the opportunity at James Sprunt opened up, and I applied, and here we are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When you were at the credit union, were you on the transactional side in the computer systems? I mean, what were you doing?
Actually, I did. I started out as a teller there. I spent a little bit of time as a loan officer as well. I worked in business services as well, so opening accounts for businesses and things like that. And then later on, I got into the IT, so more into the other side, the server side of things.
Yeah.
So.
And I think a lot of people believe that there's less vulnerability when they see HTTPS, and so now it's locked there on my browser window, and so this is a secure site, and folks, the IRS has been hacked, and so there really is. If someone, I guess, wants to get into a system, it almost seems inevitable that they'll get in. The good news is if the resources are put to it, it almost is inevitable they'll get caught.
Absolutely.
So it's not as if you can get in and stay there forever, but it really is something I think people need to think about. What are your thoughts about social media? Because if you take this, you're going to steal my file information. I think the other thing is we don't realize how much information we publicly give away.
Yes, absolutely. When you go to these websites, whether they're HTTPS or not, there's an opportunity for people to go out and get phished. That information being input into those forms that are online, and now I have it and I can use it for whatever I want if I'm a malicious actor. So
Right.
yeah, that's going around. Definitely.
You know, and that was something that, you know, and this is actually goes back into the late 90s, early 2000s, but it's far more elaborate today. But when I was teaching statistics and research methods at Mount Olive, I would have students, I'd ask them, I said, is there anyone in here who doesn't have a cat, has never had a cat, doesn't know a cat, just no cats in their lives whatsoever, never bought cats, never been to a vet for a cat, so you're finding this cat virgin from the standpoint of no history anywhere about it. I told them to go to the grocery store, use a credit card, and buy a Hart's 3-in-1 cat flea collar. And then count the days before their mail will have cat stuff, and then how long it will continue to market to them. And it's got a credit card number and cat that got picked up matched with the driver's license database that someone has paid for, and now they have their mailing address, and boom, you've got the marketing. It takes about 72 hours on the outside, could be as close as 24 hours, just depending on where the service is. Just think about it.
Yeah, that's insane.
Well, now we turn around and post our cat videos on Facebook where you're giving them the same information, depending on what your security settings are on any of your social media outlets.
That's right. It's all about the metadata these days. And you mentioned the dynamic nature of your phone and being able to identify where you are. Something that I came across, something that someone shared with me before, is being in maybe Target or Walmart, and they take their phone out of their pocket and it says, advertising for whatever aisle they may be on. So the companies are tapping into ways to manipulate that data and turn it into a marketing opportunity.
I was at a conference Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday in Raleigh at the Midtown Hilton. And when I walked in the door, now I'm a Hilton Honors member, so there's some other reasons why my phone knew this. But it told me the moment I walked in the door, here's your room number.
Wow.
Here's what people are saying about the Hilton Midtown. Here's your conference information, and here's the room that you need to go to. I mean, I just walked in the door, and my phone is just lit up with all these things. And when I go to a restaurant, it'll tell me what's going on here. I have in Walmart, it will tell me what aisle certain things,
Right.
And I'm sure if I've never tried this before, but if I used my task portion of my, the calendar suite's got your tasks. I bet if I put my tasks in there, read those, and probably tell me where to go get the stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm less on the creepy side, but I'm getting closer to it. The more I think this through. So talk a little bit about what are the user profiles and stuff. What are the tools? How much issue do folks have with Microsoft Office today? Let me back up. Almost everyone has used Microsoft Office. Now that it's on the cloud, it presents some different challenges. What do users normally do?
Well, for the most part, just keeping up with the curve, as far as often as they release new information, new software. There are updates every day that are run. So we have a thing like a Patch Tuesday or whatever where we have to go through and do all the updates. So that's pretty much the biggest challenge. But as far as the convenience goes, going to the cloud and doing the Office 365, now people don't actually have to have it locally on their machines, or they don't have to spend that money. We can offer that service. You can log into your account online and download it to your computer and use your license that you're associated with the school. So it presents some advantages as well.
I had an experience. I actually use a Mac laptop for some other stuff unrelated to school, but I obviously I will often hop on that to go to Office or go to my mail on 365.
Right.
And I hopped on not too long ago, and all of a sudden, all the Microsoft Office icons popped up and said, this computer does not have these access to this software. Do you want to allow it? And I said, yes. And so the next thing I knew, I was using Excel, where I used to use numbers and then save it and convert it over. There it was. And it was all because I have the rights and privileges to use that as an employee at James Sprunt.
Right.
So it was basically telling me, any computer you get on, I'm going to allow you to do your work.
Yep. Exactly, and that's a plus. It's definitely a convenience.
It is.
Yeah.
Going back to if you were starting out a small business and you were just sort of thinking about what are some technologies you think small business owners ought to be knowledgeable about?
I would definitely have a web presence, and that's something that I could defer to you, because obviously your expertise in that is at another level. But just having a web presence, people underestimate that. You can go to a small business and have to sit and wait in line, but if it was possible for me to go online and maybe pre-order, that could make your business a little bit more efficient. As far as security goes, you definitely want to have some security appliances in place, like a firewall, intrusion protection services, different things like that. And locally on your machines as well, you want to have some kind of antivirus, just the normal things that the preventative maintenance that you would do in order to try to thwart any kind of attacks before they happen. So.
Yeah, and one of the things, you hit on a couple of things that are really very typical. I'm a huge advocate of having a managed web presence for a whole host of reasons. When I say a web presence, not every small business needs a web page. Many do, but some don't. If you're going to do transactional stuff, sell stuff or whatever, ship stuff, then yeah, you're going to need a web page in order to manage and secure that. But there are lots of outlets, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, just a whole litany of social media platforms out there. They're all free. And for so if you sort of break this down into, start at the highest level, we've never been in a position in the last 50 years where a small business less than $1 million in sales, which most small businesses are, that can promote and advertise and reach out to their potential customers for zero cost. That has never been. So things have changed. It used to be you were General Electric and you had fairly large coffers that you could advertise. If you had a problem, you just over-advertised and promoted yourself through that problem, and people didn't have a choice. We had our advertising come to us when we watched TV shows. We had it was all pushed to us. We got very little say in it. Well, not today. We advertise 24 hours, 7 days. We have tools that tell us when our customers are available and looking. And but most small business owners don't have any expertise in this. They don't even know how to begin. They know their product or services that they're offering. Most aren't IT related, and they don't really know how to manage that. So the folks that can do that have a huge advantage.
Absolutely.
We're fixing to kick off an initiative through the Small Business Center that's it's a Google initiative called Get Your Business Online, GYBO. It's an initiative Google's been doing for over a year. Google's starting to put out statistics, and they're pretty telling. Even in a county like Duplin, that's very rural, 86% of people who are looking for goods or services go online to look for those goods and services, even if they're planning on buying locally. Well, only 30% of our businesses are online.
Wow.
So, I'm looking online. I assume it's not there. Therefore, I'll go buy somewhere else. And so I'm trying to tell businesses it doesn't. And that's the other thing that I run into, and people are really, especially older folks, are struggling with this. If you have a brick and mortar address, if you have a store, well, folks, you have a Google Plus account. Just by virtue of you having that physical address, Google has come by, picked you up, and put you in their system.
That's right.
That's how Google Maps works.
Right.
But in order for that to happen, they've put photographs and they've put over other things so you can have a street view, you can see the store, you can do all these things. Well, guess what? Google's not infallible. They make mistakes. Sometimes it's not your store. It's the one next door, or it's somewhere else. And it doesn't know your hours, so it doesn't say when you're open or closed. It doesn't know the phone number, maybe not. So there's a lot of information it doesn't know. So you now have an online presence, but it's not correct.
Right. Yeah.
And, there's some restaurants in the county that have bad reviews on something called Yelp. And I've encouraged them to, you need to go manage it. I don't have a Yelp account, they'll say. Well, yeah, you kind of do. Your business does anyway.
Right.
But what you can do is reach out to the company and say, hey, I'm the owner of this, and once you demonstrate to them, and you can do it by mail or you can do it online, once you demonstrate to them that you are indeed the owner, you can change the pictures. You can put your information about when it's there, and you can respond to anything anyone has said about you. You can't delete it, but you can at least, respond. And, we'll get back to that. That is hugely important. But it's hard to explain to people. You no longer have to create an account to be online these days.
That's right.
You already are there.
There.
Now what you can do is manage the message. And that is really hard. And I've been, James Sprunt is working in that direction. That's some of the things you have to be talking about too. How do we use social media?
Right. Exactly. It's definitely a way, and one of our concerns is always having that enrollment. In order for us to continue to do what we do, we have to have students that are there. So using those different platforms in order to advertise and get more people aware of what we have going on at the college, it's used for us.
Yeah, and James Sprunt presents a nice little comparison to some of my small businesses, depending on where you are. The social media platforms keep being more of them, but they all break into certain categories. Facebook is just an interesting evolution. Facebook started out as a youth thing, college students, just Zuckerberg in Harvard, But before long, folks like me got on, and we usually got on because we were trying to figure out what our daughter or son was doing. We got an account so we could track them. But lo and behold, we found our friends in high school and other things. Right. And so it's become a middle-aged person's platform. It really isn't a youth platform anymore. So if your demographic says men and women ages 35 to 55 or 60, you better be on Facebook because that's the majority of folks that are on there. If your demographic for your business happens to be 16 to 25, Facebook's not going to help you. You're going to have to be on a different platform, maybe Instagram. If you have a predominantly female in a visual medium, Pinterest is going to be something you need to be in. If it's professional services, if you're an attorney or services to an attorney firm or medical service or any professional service, you better be on LinkedIn. And so all of these things require us to sort of know who our customer is, which has always been marketing 101, know who your customer is, but then know what platform they are. And that sounds daunting and impossible to know, but the tools are all there for you to get that information. Facebook will tell you who's coming to your page, and you just have to ask.
And that's right. And if you're not aware of that, those are, that's something that you're, not familiar with. That's something that you can also come to the Small Business Center and learn. So
thanks for the plug.
Absolutely.
But you're absolutely right. I always say this. We're already halfway through the show. Time just flies. And you are listening to the Community and Small Biz Update for Duplin County. I am Lee Woodard, your host. My guest today is Stan Shockley, who is the Associate Vice President for MIS at James Sprunt. The show is brought to you by James Sprunt Community College, your bridge to success, as well as the Small Business Center at James Sprunt. Today we've been and are talking about information technology and some of the pros and the cons and I guess maybe just the challenges that this technology presents to us, and it changes. I always try to believe I stay up on it, and I don't. Every day I find a new platform that is out there and trying to figure out. You can get lost in it without moving forward, if you're not careful. So let's talk a little bit about preferences for you, and we'll see what you think about. I think I know the answer to this. I asked you, and I don't remember. Are you an iPhone or an Android person?
Android.
That's right.
I just recently jumped off the BlackBerry bandwagon. Probably stayed on a little later than everyone else, but I got an Android now, so I'm pretty happy with it. So
yeah, I was a child of the first BlackBerries, and wow, what a device, what a tool.
Absolutely.
But from BlackBerries went to iPhones, probably 20 years ago, I guess. God, have they been up that long? It was 98, I think. 98, so 15 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, pretty quick, 2000 or whatever. And
iPhone was like 2005.
Was it 06?
2000, okay.
06?
Well, then I stayed on the BlackBerry a little longer than I thought. But anyway, I was an early adopter on the iPhone and have stayed with them all the way through and absolutely love them.
Yeah.
And, actually, I came to the iPhone by virtue of music. Before the iPhone, it was iTunes that got me there. I'm a big music lover. I have a fairly large music library. And did sample on Napster a little bit when it first came out, just a little bit.
Love Napster.
But as soon as it became legal, as soon as there were other opportunities, I hopped on them. And iTunes, I've been on iTunes for a long, long time, so I have my music there. And I did really and still believe that it presents just wonderful ways to manage your music that
Absolutely.
I never found through some of Microsoft Zune or through some of the other things that were there. So I have stayed with media like pictures and music being on the Apple platform. All of my work stuff has always been on a Windows environment and still is. And so my clouds, if you want entertainment, go to Apple for me. If you want business, go to, Google Drive or OneDrive in Microsoft. But what do you like about an Android?
The functionality of it, it was easy to get used to, the usability as well. One thing that is kind of disturbing or concerning is it's not really good at processing, multitasking. So I could be playing a video on YouTube and shut that down and then try to do something else, and sometimes it doesn't work. So that's one concern I have. But other than that, the usability and the convenience is good. And also with BlackBerry, a problem that I ran into was one of the reasons I had to change, because a lot of the apps that were coming out, they just weren't available for that platform. So, and that's another thing with iPhone, Android as well. You have access to all those different things.
I assume, I don't really know, y'all can tell me, iPhone still is a little more pricey than, I know Apple equipment is always a little more pricey than its comparable equipment for Windows-based or Android, Google-based.
Right.
Is the same still true on phones? I don't know if they are. Yeah, I've got a couple of heads nodding. I've never really looked. I'm not sure what it'll take me to switch. My daughter switched to an Android, says she absolutely loves it. But I will probably stay with the iPhone. Now, I'm also, interesting for being a nerd, I'm not necessarily an early adopter. I get my 6 when 7s are, I'm always a little bit behind, because if my belief is if the technology I'm using is serving my purposes, why change?
Exactly. And you also give them an opportunity to debug
Right.
whatever mistakes they may have made with the newer version. Let other people be the test dummies, and then you come along when it's fixed. So, yeah.
Well, so you're old enough to remember using a payphone.
Sure.
Yeah. I am very much remember. I'm still blown away that when I first graduated from college, I had to travel on a trip, get to the airport after everything was done. I had to get to a payphone, use an AT&T calling card, and call the business to talk about or hook up a modem to a payphone.
Wow.
And transfer maybe 15,000 characters over 10 minutes, at this slow rate of change. And how I would actually get on my bicycle in 1972 and be gone all day, and my mom never know where I am and not be worried. Could we imagine letting anyone in our lives that we care about
I couldn't.
out of touch, So, how things change so fast. But if you were starting a small business, well, let me ask you, I had one more question. This is more of a personal one. I always use the free antiviral software that's available, like AVG or whatever is out there, and won't spend any money locally on a machine. I just use whatever's free and say no every time they get me to upgrade, and believe that having my router and my modem and some of those other things, the firewall protecting it, then I just need local.
Sure.
Do you agree with that, or should people pay for Norton's or for Kaspersky or any of the McAfee, any of the ones that are out there?
I think that's pretty much user specific. How important?
How political was that for an answer?
There you go. I'm learning.
Good job.
But yeah, it's how sensitive is the data that you have on your system? How much access do you want to allow to it? I think there are some excellent tools out there, and I think that just like technology is always changing, that the best in those categories is also changing as well. So I would just suggest to do, look at surveys, different things like that, see which one is the top of the line, and then go from there.
Yeah, I tend to keep my most sensitive stuff off of the hard drive that is on the computer I use. It's usually kept in a cloud place, and then it's kept on an external drive that doesn't stay plugged into the computer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then, other than fire or theft, it's not going to disappear. I don't know that that's a perfect strategy, but I tend to think it's an okay one.
Yeah, that's good, because you've created redundancy. If you lose it in one place, you have it in another. That gives you peace of mind as well. You never know what could happen on the cloud, because that's pretty much out of your control. But if you have that external hard drive there, then But you can always use that.
And this is where the pragmatic side of me comes in. Google has a lot to lose if Google Drive is accessible and my information is vulnerable.
Absolutely.
So I tend to believe they'll spend more money and know more about it and have resources to protect it than I could ever do. And so I tend to believe Google or Microsoft or iCloud for Apple, I believe they will protect it as well as it can be protected. Therefore, I don't worry about it.
That's it. Yeah.
And again, it may be like the physical lock on your house. It's there more for you to sleep at night and to feel comfortable when you're gone than it is to actually prevent somebody.
Exactly.
It is. So much. I wonder how much. Well, that'd be an interesting study. How much security is about making us feel better versus actually
stopping
making us
someone from doing something? Yeah, good point.
Well, I think that's what we do when we walk through the metal detectors and stuff in the airport. A lot of it is a show of make me feel better. Otherwise, I wouldn't get on an airplane.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, this is starting to get depressing.
Right.
All right. Well, let's go to something that's more just as risky, but still more popular. Let's talk about some of the e-commerce stuff that's out there. PayPal and Google Wallet and what's the Apple one?
Is it Apple Pay?
Apple Pay, thank you. Yeah, they're all out there. Do you use any of those?
I do. I'm a big fan of PayPal. I've had a PayPal account for a long time. Established a business account with my nonprofit. I'm a huge fan of that. But just now getting exposed to Google Wallet as well. I guess Google wanted to create some competition for them, like they're trying to take over everything. But so with YouTube. For instance, that's the situation where I was using it. There was a movie on YouTube I wanted to watch, and your YouTube account is tied to your Google account. So all you have to do is click a couple buttons, and you can purchase that stream right there. So, yeah, that was very convenient.
You just brought up a couple things. One I didn't know about. You have a nonprofit?
Yes, I do.
Tell us about the nonprofit.
Sure. Native Sons. I started it actually as a boxing gym in Jacksonville.
Oh, cool.
My dad was an all-Marine boxer, and he started teaching me how to box when I was 4 or 5 years old, and it's something that I'm still passionate about, so I started doing that, but also getting involved in some mentoring and some different things for kids, like trying to start an after-school program to use boxing to help with bullying and trying to identify different problems with the youth. I have a niece, a nephew, a son. My son, so the different things that they run into when they go to school, you try to address those.
Right. So, do you have fundraisers for your nonprofit?
Yes.
Anything coming up soon?
No, not anything in the works right now. I wanted to get involved in the Azalea Festival. They always have a boxing event there, but I wasn't able to. But also, just the basic. You go to Krispy Kreme. We got a Krispy Kreme in Jacksonville now, so sell some donuts and different things like that, car washes and stuff.
All right. If people are interested in your nonprofit, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. Nativesons.org.
Okay.
Is the website. You can go and find a lot of information and see what it's all about.
Excellent. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I didn't ask you about that, but when you just mentioned the word my nonprofit, I wrote it down. And I was like, well, let me ask him about that. No, I think that's great. A lot of people ask because this show is not about football, but I did say it was it, and it is pretty.
It's pretty broad, right?
So, in addition to IT, we'll talk about it. Since you brought up boxing, you bring up. I played football when I was young. Love football, and believe football teaches you a lot of lessons about life and those types of things. So in many ways, I drank the Kool-Aid that I was being told when I was there. Well, boxing presents some of those very same challenges as far as injury, and although boxing's far less likely. Well, you can get a concussion obviously in boxing, but in football it's pretty prevalent.
Yes.
So how do you answer people who say, I'm not sure I want my child to do that? Because people ask me, and I ended up hurting my leg. The reason I limp is because of football. And people always ask me, if you had a son, would you let him play football? My answer was always yes. And it was almost reflex in my answer.
Right.
But even when I think it through, I think the answer is yes. Even though the data kind of says there may be some better sports.
Right.
But how do you address that when people have concerns?
Yes, and that's very difficult. That's why boxing isn't really as popular as it has been in the past. But I would just say to take into the account that it's not always about competing. It's not always about getting punched in the face. It's about the different things that you can pick up, like the discipline and just keeping and fighting through something, maybe fatigue or whatever the case may be. You could take that same attitude and apply it to different things in your life. So there's a whole lot more you can get from it than just the competition aspect.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, learning to play on a team,
absolutely,
where you have folks of differing abilities, but you get almost this gestalt thing where the individual abilities added up, you actually can accomplish something greater than that. All of a sudden, you're performing at a level that 11 people couldn't perform at.
Right.
You're performing at something greater, and that's because of teamwork and the other things. And then to your point, I'm tired and I don't really want to do this.
Exactly.
Well, but you still do it, and you still do it well. I think those are all disciplines that help us as we get older. But it is when you look at football, there's a whole lot of reason to sit back and think. But I think part of it, and I'm be interested to hear your opinion on this. Part of it is we didn't really do very good at diagnosing injury early on. I mean, we all see violent, collisions, and we know somebody probably got hurt. But it's the nonviolent ones repetitively that tend to be or can be just as dangerous. And so I think there's been a pretty good effort of trying to get people to pull a child if it looks like they've been in that environment, or to test them and to look at it. And I hold hope that actually means that this can continue on.
Right, absolutely, and into the future and make it a safer sport.
That's right.
And we've had advances in the equipment that they wear, protective equipment and things like that. And a lot of times you wish it wasn't like this, but a lot of times it does take for, like a junior SAO or something like that to happen before you actually start looking into those things and improving it in the future. So that's unfortunate, but it is an opportunity to move forward, definitely.
Yeah, I'm a big believer there's no way we can be aware of everything.
Right.
And as long as we're responding to it in a way, there's certainly the commercial aspect. Did people wait too long to try, and did they know more than they told? Well, yeah. Maybe. But at least when we know, we do something. And that actually brings up, I'll ask you another one that I think is interesting. I read an interesting article. I'm an avid reader of Scientific American, and there's been some recent studies about all the fitness devices, technology devices that are out there. I'm wearing one today, a Fitbit.
Nice.
But there's some interesting, is there anyone in the room who thinks a Fitbit, it could be harmful, very harmful to us?
I wouldn't say harmful. I think that along with a lot of technologies, we become a little bit dependent on them. So we might start looking at our Fitbit to determine when we stop working out, as opposed to actually feeling tired. So I think that's something to take a look at. But harm,
the research is kind of interesting, and it goes into something called extrinsic versus intrinsic value. Why do I do the things I do? Working out, if those who actually get in the habit of working out and do it start to derive a lot of intrinsic value out of it. And it could be how they feel, anticipating getting ready to do it, feeling accomplishment when it's over with. There's all kinds of motivators and motivations that are before, during, and after. But these intrinsic values help us continue to do it. We look forward to it, and it becomes fun. When we put a Fitbit on, apparently, we at some point start looking at the Fitbit for how many steps did I do, what my heart rate was, and all of the data that it gets to me, how much REM sleep did I get. I feel like I slept good last night. Oh no, my phone tells me I didn't sleep good. Something appears to perhaps be happening that would start to reduce that intrinsic value. We focus entirely on the Fitbit, and all of a sudden it stops being fun. And so the excitement about it, I've worked so hard to try to get to 10,000 steps and I haven't done it, or whatever that may be. We have a substitution, and now it's all about the data.
Right.
And at some point, that's not fun anymore. It starts to be like work or whatever. So, you say, well, I'm not wearing this Fitbit, and I throw it away. The problem is the intrinsic value doesn't come back. We no longer enjoy it. It took the joy away, and that doesn't sound good to me. I don't know about y'all. This seems to be a problem. So there's now a lot of research going on about how these devices may change the motivators behind why we do what we do. And if you're a professional athlete, or at a level like that, then data is all about. That's what you're doing. You need to know this data. You're measuring grams of carbs and proteins, and it is like a business, and so you don't have as much intrinsic, you have extrinsic reasons why you're doing it. But for most of us, to get out and walk a mile is about intrinsic value, and if this device takes that away, it kind of says we won't do it anymore.
That's true. That's very true, and that's the slippery slope of technology, unfortunately.
Well, Lydia and I were talking last night at dinner, and I was like, I'm usually pretty good when I see new technology, go, that could not happen. That might turn out not so well, or that could be a problem. But it never occurred to me that this device could have any lasting negative effects, but I think that's the unknown of any technology. We don't know what's going to happen when we throw it out there. We think we do. We certainly do some testing, precautionary or whatever, but I don't think anyone who created a Fitbit for a second thought that
subconsciously you're making us lazy, right?
That's right. Yeah. So now's, I guess, a good time to get into the science medication of intrinsic value. No, it's not all about money. Well, my heart rate is 95. No. Well, Stan, this has been a wonderful conversation. And I'm looking at my notes. There was a lot of stuff we didn't talk about. One thing really quick, I know we have done it. The school's probably going to do it at some point, but IP telephony. Let's just talk about getting our phones off of landlines and running through the computer. That's something, your opinion on? And
Sure. Well, first and foremost, for me in the position that I'm in, it's huge as far as the financial situation. That'll save us a whole lot of money to be able to tie in what we're doing with telephones with what we're already doing with data on the network. So that helps us out a lot. But also just moving into the future and taking advantage of all the different things that are available to you. When you start talking about being able to video conference with just one device, or cutting down the clutter on your desk because you don't actually have to have a handset there because you can do everything through your computer, is definitely something that we want to do in the future.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, if you're in a rural area, it's been a bit of a challenge. But if you can get on platforms that are faster than just the ordinary phone company DSL, but you get on cable, then all of a sudden you have IP telephony. You get rid of your phone set, you get it. Now, I'm not picking on CenturyLink. No one get here. I'm not saying that they're bad, but I'm just saying that technology, all of a sudden, one machine does everything for you, and you have one bill.
Exactly.
That it should be less than everything that you've added up, so you get faster internet service and those types of things, and then you can spend that money, all that saved money, on security. I guess based on this conversation.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you still don't have any more money, right? Oh, that's so sad.
It is.
We've mentioned it, but one of the other changes you see coming along is our desktop computers are going to disappear, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. We were talking about the VCE environment. They're actually devices now that are completely replacing towers, the hard drive of your computer, and you can use that to dial into a server and get an image of an operating system and all the programs that you need. So that's pretty much obsolete technology now.
So is it the Google Chrome we're going to be using?
Chromebook, yes, and also some different things like Wise terminals, things like that. They have those devices that I'm talking about, a virtual desktop environment.
Yep.
So yep.
So let's see if he may not say anything. So do you use any social media?
I do. I definitely use LinkedIn.
Okay.
I think that's an excellent tool.
Yes, I'm a big believer. If you're in business, if even nonprofits, but if you are a for-profit business, you have to be on LinkedIn.
Sure.
You need to find the groups that. Now that brings up a good point. Being on it and actively using it are two different things. And if you don't actively use it, it's not going to be as helpful to you.
Right.
So you're out there to network. I mean, LinkedIn is like going to a function where you can meet other people that do what you do.
Right.
And if you reach out to your network with a question, people will respond.
That's right.
There's a lot of evidence for that. Look, when Wikipedia started, the encyclopedias, which by the way don't exist anymore, the encyclopedia said this is a bad idea because think of all the misinformation that's going to be out there.
Yeah.
And after it got out there for a little while, the interesting thing is Wikipedia is more accurate than the encyclopedias ever were. Because if you go out to a network of experts and you have decent systems for access, if someone puts a lie out there that says Lee Woodard ran for president, it won't be long before people will go, no, we didn't.
Right.
And they'll fix it. And so it's self-correcting, and the experts will rise to the top. And so all of a sudden, in LinkedIn or any of these social media, you're not, accuracy is actually pretty good in these social platforms. Any other social media do you use social media for your nonprofit?
I do. Facebook or and just a website, YouTube, different YouTube videos as well. We'll post. So yeah.
So how can we find you on Facebook for the nonprofit?
On Facebook /Native Sons.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, she's giving me the 4-minute mark, and Kurt walked in, so all my visual signs, it's about over, have shown up. Yeah, they're going to kick us out. Well, Stan, anything else that you would say to a small business owner that's grappling with technology?
One thing that I would definitely say is would change the landscape of everything you're doing for the better is to go see Lee Woodard at the small business center at James Sprunt. I think it'll be very beneficial for you, and you'll definitely get something good out of it.
Now, did we agree on how much I needed to pay you?
We'll talk about that afterwards.
I couldn't remember if we agreed on a price for that. Yeah. But and I won't give out your number if my small business.
No, don't do that.
You've got your own set of problems. But that is one of the things I think is a cottage industry ready to happen. We do end up with IT companies, small business companies, but they tend to focus on larger businesses because they have the money to pay them. Mm-hmm. But there is a cottage industry being developed helping small business owners. If you can find a pricing model they can afford. I swear I believe you can help people get their Facebook page, manage their social media, and those types of things. If we can cut the rates from where they are presently today. Some of this is pretty time consuming, so obviously we want to get paid for it. But somewhere I believe there's a business idea for helping small business owners if you got enough of them. Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe that's what LegalZoom is, or some of these other, they got enough scale where they can charge less and make money. Mm-hmm. But, well, you have, as they say on Click and Clack, you've wasted an entire hour listening to the Small Biz and Community Update for Duplin County. My guest today was Stan. Stan, it was such a great privilege to have you here. I'm glad you were here. We'll get you back on the show because I have other questions I never got to you about.
I'd love to come back.
Folks, next week I won't be here. We'll have a secret guest host. I will be talking with him shortly about whether or not he's available to be on the show. Y'all have a great weekend. The sun is shining. It's not raining, so get outside and enjoy it.